Hello again, my fellow gamers. I am absolutely stuffed with Thanksgiving niceties, but that's not really important. My name is just Sheen. As the 36 of you already know, I am incredibly lucky enough to be in possession of the incredible, indelible, insurmountable, even edible PlayStation 5. I hope you're prepared, because this video here will be deep diving into Sony's now 1-year-old ray tracing monster machine of entertainment. So, with introductions well out of the way, let's hop right in. My history with PlayStation started a good, like, 15 years ago, in the year 2004, when I was just 4 years old, and it was the first time I had truly picked up a controller. That said controller belonged to the also indelible, ineffable, insurmountable, I forgot the list, console known as the PlayStation 2, the world's greatest console. And the game that I was playing was Jak and Daxter, the Precursor legacy on a 4:3 aspect ratio 200-pound box television. I could feel the weight of Jak's gait underneath my fingertips as I ran around aimlessly in the tutorial area, Geyser Rock. It was a simple, humble beginning, but it was truly a wonderful period to become a gamer. I was born in a Goldilocks zone, so to speak, where I was able to experience and grow up with the absolute perfection of third-person, three-dimensional action games. And now, many generations later, with computational power levels now measured in the tens of thousands of times more complex and stronger, I get to experience now gaming at its absolute current zenith. The PlayStation 5 is an incredibly powerful machine capable of computing game worlds just as well, and in some places better, than PCs worth 4 times that of what you paid for. Yes, I did say that to piss someone off, but I also know that I'm right. I have had the privilege of owning one of these bad boys for just about 10 months now, and so my familiarity is righteous. We're starting with the overall interface, direction, and design. To start, I think the home screen is good and directly mimics the PlayStation 3 and 4's with adjustments made to, help the really cool and clean particle-y wallpaper motif that they're going for. But that really is where my praises end, unfortunately. I've always thought that PlayStation's home screens suffered from that simplistic and minimalist design, with the marketplace located so far to the left and game library located so far to the right, with all of your recently played games in between. It can be a bit tedious getting to where you want to go. There is no way to use, say, the controller's triggers, or touchpad, or clicking the sticks to quickly move to either side. The bumper buttons, even R1 and L1, are used to switch home screen modes, from games to media. So that leaves your only mode of navigation to the directional pad, and if you're in desperate need of help, the analog sticks. You can access a Search All feature above the squares next to the console settings, PSN profile, and clock. All of this is accessible with the press of a triangle button, or if you were to move your cursor above the squares and hover over it as well. The Media tab functions just like the Games tab, except it houses your entertainment apps like Hulu, Netflix, and, well, YouTube. I was going to tell you each of the entries in the settings menu, but it would be just as tedious listening to it as it would be for me to write it. So, keeping it blazingly simple, you can adjust your PSN account, system storage, overall basic settings like Wi-Fi, audio paths, and as well as parental controls, and screen settings. All of the stuff you should come to expect from today's technology. With a press of the PlayStation button, a guide overlay will appear. Here you can see squares of news and recently created media, as well as invites and trophies for the games you're playing. For PlayStation 5 rated titles, you can use the guide to navigate into different areas, like say in Demon's Souls. You're able to stop whatever you're doing and teleport to any of the archstones, with just one simple press. Of course, you drop all your souls, but that's aside the point, it's just cool that you can do that. It is some really cool tech, and it's really only up to more developers utilizing it. On the lower bar of the guide, you have a pretty large range of personalization, though it's not the most exciting of kind. You can move stuff like your home screen shortcut and recent games/apps around to wherever you'd like. You can also access your accessories, which means controllers and headsets, that kind of thing. You can monitor sound output levels, your current downloads, and you can even play music from either Spotify or Apple Music. No other app, however, which is a real letdown since I am a superior Android plebeian, and don't really like Spotify all that much either, but hey, what are you gonna do? If you're wondering if you could play locally stored music, like say soundtracks you've downloaded, guess again. Apparently the world's most powerful console can't multitask as an MP3 player. But hey, what are you gonna do? Speaking of power, let's talk about what gives this thing its horsepower. The PlayStation 5 is equipped with an octa-core, that means 8, AMD Zen 2 architecture central processing unit, or CPU, capable of a maximum of 3.5 GHz of processing power with each core. The graphical processing unit, or GPU, is a custom RDNA 2 architecture, possessing 36 CU units, each variably running at 2.23 GHz, capable of punching out 10.28 teraflops of graphical power. It was fun saying that. It's okay if you don't have a clue what any of that means. Let's just do a quick comparison to last gen's console, the PlayStation 4's base model. Its CPU is also an octa-core AMD, however it's only running at 1.6 GHz per core, as opposed to the PlayStation 5's 3.5 GHz. So in other words, through sheer power comparison, and not even including the PS5's simultaneous multi-threading or SMT tech, you are unironically getting over twice the computational power for nearly the same price at launch. And don't even get me started on the GPUs of the two. It's just about 10 times or so more powerful, and that's not even hyperbole. Now for ray tracing, RT Tech has been the talk of the town for a few years now, and I can easily tell you it is really, really cool. They are graphical processing cores dedicated to calculate and process light. This means that shadows are deep, true, and light shafts are correct to their source, and most importantly, reflections are calculated in real time to produce as close to life reflections as currently possible. This means walking close to puddles, glass surfaces, and anything that can bounce back light efficiently will offer you a beautiful picture show. But you gotta remember, this only applies to games that have been developed with ray tracing in mind. Luckily, the more widespread RT tech becomes, the more it will become standard practice. But ray tracing was secondary to the main pitch of the PlayStation 5, and that's its custom lightning-fast solid-state drive, or SSD for short. A typical hard drive, or HDD, is a storage method by means of physical spinning disks that get magnetically wrote and read on in tiny little ones and zeros. With an SSD, the physical part is completely bypassed and such is only bound to the laws of today's digital data transmission speeds. Sony went one step further, or rather 12 steps further, and gave us a proprietary system capable of communicating with the random access memory, or RAM, with 12 different data channels, all at the same time. This means that data can be transferred at a rate of 2 GB per quarter second. The size of the SSD is 825 GB. A weird number, but there is a reason for that. There is some sciencey stuff that I honestly couldn't really get any answers to, but just know that whenever you're running data through 12 channels, 825 is the most optimal for size and speed. Computers are weird. A usual SSD is anywhere from 4 to 8 channels, and with 12 channels in the PS5, Sony needed some optimization to avoid bottlenecking. 825 GB is essentially the absolute most optimized and spacious the system can go, while still being affordable for Sony and, of course, by extension, the buyer, and also avoiding the plight of slowing down loading times all at the same time. I'm going to make another comparison to last gen's PS4. The hard drive on the PS4 was not exactly an afterthought, but it never broke any records either. It read at a bandwidth of 50 to 100 megabytes per second, with a seek time of anywhere from 2 to 50 milliseconds, all equating to a load time of 1 gigabyte per 20 seconds. Per 20 seconds. Per 20 seconds. Are you listening? Per 20 seconds. 1 gig per 20 seconds. When I see and hear people down talk this new console generation, I make a condescending 5.5 times 20 is 110. 110 gigs of data could hypothetically transfer in 20 seconds, as opposed to the 1 gig per 20 seconds. This is a 55 times increase to workload. An incredibly stupid high number. If the developers were to truly get rid of loading screens and have a perfectly optimized product, you could literally be able to load into an area faster than it takes to blink. In fact, in some cases, some developers have artificially increased loading times to combat disorientation, because it actually just is that fast. It's really cool. The PS4's hard drive, along with every other hard drive in the world, has to search for the correct data to pull so that it can be computed. An SSD does not know such meager tasks. It seeks its data instantly since it does not have to scan a spinning disk to reveal its contents. Ludicrous speed is all this machine knows. If you're finding the amount of storage to be a bit lacking, yeah, you'd be right. But there is some really cool tech being implemented here. Because the SSD is so stupid fast, it is able to compress all of its games stored inside to a fraction of the original size, to be decompressed in real time whenever you're playing via a few cores dedicated to decompression. It's really cool. This means that huge 100 gig titles, which are slap full of extraneous unused graphical and just regular data, will either be compressed or erased completely. Yeah, it's kind of wild. I mentioned the SSD cooperates with the RAM to create a perfectly optimized data delivery system. Random access memory is a form of temporary flash storage that can transmit data quickly and aids your system to avoid unnecessary workload by needing to pull from the storage solution. The PS5's memory is a 16GB capacity 256-bit GDDR6 interface running at 448 GB per second. This gives the SSD just about 12 or so gigs of interchangeable data to aid in its retrieval process, to make things as smooth as possible. The PS4's memory is an 8GB 256-bit GDDR5 interface that runs at 176 GB a second. This makes for a 2.5 times increase of speed with twice the capacity. And how about that GDR5/6 talk that I was doing there? GDDR is an acronym for Graphics Double Data Rate. Memory in computers have been evolving since the 1990s, and without having to write an entire college thesis for a YouTube video, essentially GDDR systems are used to quickly store and retrieve graphical data to take a load off of the CPU and GPU so they can focus on the important things like processing new data, which will then also be stored into the RAM as well. With each GDDR generation comes with further optimizations and just quicker hardware in general that is still backwards compatible with games and programs built to cooperate with the generation of memory before. There's a lot more of explaining exactly what memory is, as well as where it came from, but again, that is a very long paper that, well, I mean, I could write up. If you want me to talk about that, there is a comments section. If you want to hear me talk about memory for an hour and a half, go right ahead. It is awaiting your input. Wow! It has been a page and a half of 12-point Calibri font with no spaces in between paragraphs. Let's show you what this baby can do now. With that sick as Dickens compilation out of the way, we gotta talk about the controller. PlayStation's signature DualShock controllers have been the same shape since 1994 with the PS1, and aside from the size of Sony's new input devices, once you pick up one controller, you'll feel right at home with the rest. And the DualSense is ridiculously cool. What now differs is the size of the battery being bigger, a charge port that takes the significantly more efficient USB Type-C, as opposed to the PS4's micro USB, the same kind of port that pretty much all current and relatively new non-Apple phones take. And now the really, really cool part. The thing that makes the DualSense what it is, and that's the super stupid cool haptic feedback system. To start, I've always thought that Xbox had PlayStation beat when it comes to a controller feel and vibration especially, but you already know what I'm about to say. Man, you can feel every little thing that happens with this controller. There are haptic packs in place of the typical rumble, spinny tumbler things. This allows for a very short and precise staccato vibrations, like every single step you take, or the very pitter-patter of rain landing on your head. It is some really cool feeling stuff. But you gotta remember, this is only applicable to games that are optimized to have cool stuff like that. My favorite thing about the DualSense is this, however, the adaptive triggers. Not only are these hair trigger grade pullers very comfortable, but they have a special ability. They can have pressure and friction factor applied within the controller, which offers different levels of resistances along with the ability to slightly bounce back. It is stupid cool. I've said that a lot, I realize, but you know what? It doesn't matter. It makes for some serious immersion enhancing. Now that we've covered the interface, parts, and input, let's make the final section all about the space-aged look that Sony was aiming to achieve with the PS5. Let's be real, you either hate or love the approach Sony took with designing the system's chassis. With a mixture of hard white angles and sleek gradual black bevels, like it or not, the PS5 is very balanced. Along the smooth gloss black plate is a strip of color-shifting LEDs that can either be white, blue, or orange depending on the state of the console. When the console is in rest mode, the lights are orange. When it's active and functioning, it is white. When it's turning on or updating, it is blue. I'm pretty sure it's the same light strip technology that's on the DualSense controller, which I know can turn whatever color you can think of. So I think it was a missed opportunity to be able to adjust the running colors of the console. I want some hardcore gamer RGB color cycling like my keyboard, Sony. Onto the ports. There are 7 total ports on the PS5. The front has a speedy USB Type-A with speeds of up to 10 GB per second. Next to it is a USB Type-C port, which is also capable of 10 GB per second. On the back are 2 other USB Type-A's that are meant for external storage solutions. Underneath that is a LAN port for wired internet, the HDMI out port, and then of course the universal power adapter slot. Now, the biggest concern that easily the most talked about aspect of the PS5 is how monolithic it is. Clearly, Sony intended you to use it as a centerpiece of some kind, and with its stark white sides that cannot be changed without voiding warranty, there is a good thing that comes from its gargantuan size, and that's ventilation. Unless you get a dysfunctional model, the PS5 just doesn't make noise at all. Ultimately, if you manage to have the space for this beast, it's really just up to opinion on whether or not you find this monolith presentable. I found that I warmed up to the design after a few weeks. I used to think it was gaudy, but honestly, the future is now, old man. And that, well, really wraps everything up. The PlayStation 5 is a true piece of innovation that really only suffers on subjective terms like appearance and home screen usability. The PS5 comes in 2 different forms, one with a 4K UHD Blu-ray disc reader, and another without one. The difference being the Blu-ray player adds another $100 for a total of $500, while the digital edition does not have one, and it's $400. I cannot recommend this machine more, especially now that I've done a whole video on it. Now, as for getting one, that's another question, because as all of you know, it is easier to safely lick a bolt of lightning twice than to even think about obtaining a PS5 thanks to scalpers and shortages of chipsets and just shipping lanes in general, all the, fun stuff. If I was a bigger YouTuber, you best believe I would have done a giveaway. But as you can tell, I am on the small side. I even mentioned it at the beginning of the video. I am desperate. So it's really all up to you to get me out there and help me reach enlightenment. With a simple donation of a like and subscribe, please share me around too, if you're feeling extra generous, of course. Every little bit, counts. But you know how it is. We are all cogs in this perpetual internet machine, and just like that, this video is done. I am just Sheen. Have a good night.
Oh, chills. Literal chills.